What's up, folks? How's it going? Good afternoon. Hope you all had a wonderful day. I sure did. Well, we sure did. Been out here with the dudes for a few hours now. Well, half of the dudes, the sheep dudes. So we're kind of slowly moving back. It's been a pretty nippy afternoon, breezy, cloudy, and you can see the sun is behind the clouds. We still got a little bit of snow. You can see it from this side. But the ridge will stay covered in snow for about a week or two. It usually does that. The rest of this will normally all melt. All of this will melt. But that ridge usually stays covered in snow about a week or 2 weeks longer than everywhere else around here. It's kind of cool. But yeah, so just been out here with the dudes for the past few hours. I separated them again just because. And if you have sheep and goats mixed, you'll notice that the goats are a little bit more vicious than the sheep. So they're a little bit more, how do you say it, like their temperament. I mean, when they're eating, they'll back up and they'll ram each other, and they'll bump each other, and they do that to the sheep, and they like to eat more of the hay than the sheep do. So that's why I had to separate them, and it's been pretty mellow on both sides. The goats tend to, I think they only bump the sheep, which is funny. But, they bump each other here and there. But, I think they kind of respect themselves a little bit more. But the sheep, on the other hand, they're on the other side, and they are a lot more chill when they're on their own. And it's pretty cool to actually kind of see that. I always wanted to do that, and this is the first year that I actually got to do that. So it's been pretty cool to see how that works. But yeah, so tomorrow we're going to take the goats out and we shall push them. The sheep, they tend to eat more of the grass, so we've just been kind of here up to there, hang out there for a couple hours, come back. The goats will most likely push them further out because we got the brushes out that way, and more brushes over there. They tend to like to go that way a little bit more. Funny thing though, last week I put them back together for a few days just so that I can take them back out on the pasture. And funniest thing happened, because when they're on their own, when they're separate, this doesn't happen. It's hilarious. So, when they're separate like this, these dudes, I had to push for them to slowly move this way. And they're just kind of grazing in one place. The goats, before I put them back together, I took them out a few times as well by themselves, and they tended to do that too. They just wanted to hang out around the corral and not really go out. So the other day when they were together, I think they kind of like feed off each other's energy. So when the goats are with the sheep, the goats tend to kind of want to go further out, and the sheep try to stay up. And then when the goats get there, the sheep tend to go one way, the goats tend to catch up. So they just kind of like yo-yo back and forth. So it was pretty funny. It was kind of fun to see that, how they interact separately and together. So it's just like a difference that's very noticeable. But yeah, we just been out here for a few hours, like I said, and getting nippy. Dudes are starting to head back. I'll probably head back to the corral since we're about 200 feet away and get the goats fed, the kids fed, and probably put out a little bit of hay for these dudes so that they can, just top off their meal from the pasture. It was kind of funny though. I had to start recording, and I just wanted to, like, how do you say this? I only wish that I could say out loud the things that I think in my head, because when I'm with these dudes, I just think, and I go into like this deep trance where you kind of like think and you feel like, I don't know, for me it's always like the podcasts I listen to, my favorite, of course, my favorites, but one, I would imagine myself being there explaining like the process of being a shepherd, and like earlier, for example, I was like, this would be fun to record, but I know if I started talking about it and with the camera running and all, I would probably lose track, and I just probably would not ever get that deep or whatever with it. So it was just more because I was, thinking of the breeds of the sheep that I have, and just kind of going back from history, why I chose the certain ones that I wanted to go with, and how retired them at a certain age, and thinking of microns of wool and how wool quality, if just how they grow and how they regrow. Also with the fineness and how dual purposes of breeds, and just like how the merino was crossbred to, and it was created in Rambouillet, France, and that's where the Rambouillet breed came from, and how that breed is basically like the base of a lot of dual purpose breed, mainly the Western breeds at this point, like the Colombians, for example. It's like Rambouillet cross with a Lincoln, or the DBLAs, it's like the Merino cross with the Rambouillet. So I know there's tons more breeds out there. When I was thinking about it, I was like, just going like, yeah, there's this breed, it's crossed with the Rambouillet, like the Rambouillet, I believe, was one of them as well. And it just kind of came back like how, if that family or those folks in France back in the, what was it, like the 1500s, that they did the Rambouillet, that if they ever thought that hundreds of years later that breed would be like the base of half a dozen more breeds today, So I don't know if this makes sense, but it made a lot more sense when I was thinking it to myself, and that's what I mean. It's like if I start talking about it, I just confuse myself because I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's like, oh, it made more sense when I was thinking about it to myself, because I'm talking to myself because I make sense to me. And when I start talking out loud, it's like, do I make sense or do I not? So it was just kind of funny how that was going through my head, and just kind of thinking about all that with the breeds. And I think we had some churros back in the day. I wasn't really sure what breed we had. They were just sheep. For me, growing up, it were just sheep. My mom, my dad, my grandparents, they were just sheep. That's all. That's it. That's all it was. I didn't even know there were different breeds of sheep out there until I got a little bit older. And as a kid, growing up, it's like they weren't really specific on the breeds and wool and importance of all of this. If my grandparents were into that like that, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten more into it, and I would have bred more for wool, meat, whatever it could have been, and kept with one particular breed. I'm always I don't know how you say it, not envious, that's too much of a something a little less invasive word, I guess. I'm always like maybe jealous, but not fully jealous. But I just always like, well, nah, I'll just look at it from the other side. Like, I'm always proud of folks that are raising sheep and goats today, whose parents and grandparents were very specific about what they were breeding for and what they wanted in their breeding program. As far as like churros, a lot of them, they were very specific. They were knowledgeable in what they wanted, wool, meat, or what they wanted, So I'm always just like so happy for them that their grandparents or great grandparents or their parents were really into that, because for me, like I just mentioned, it's like they were just sheep. I didn't even know what breed we had. It's just like, it's just that, how do you say, like, they were just sheep to us. They were just goats. And when my mom was here by herself, even when I was younger, it was just a lot of crossbreeding that happened. If we did have churro, I remember one time with a black-faced ram. So I know, like, that few that we still have left, there's probably like some, I don't even know what breed that was. Black face, black legs. There's like, what are they, like Suffolk, Hampshire, all these other ones, like three or four of them that are like that. So you don't even really know what breed they were. And then we would get rams from other people as trade or whatever, and it's like, we don't know what, I didn't know what breed they were. My mom never asked for it. My dad never asked for it when he was here, but my mom never asked for it. It's like, what breed were they, But prior to that, I think there was just a lot of what do you call it, like interbreeding, line breeding, because there was really no outside influence within the herds, like, especially for us. It was until we moved here, I remember that we would get like rams from other people and they would always be different. So I was thinking about that, and I just like always just kind of saddens me that we had to go through that and just like be like, and it's like, it would have been cool if we had like a very distinctive one, just like the Angoras. I know they're Angoras. I had to research it, and I found out later. I just always thought those were the only goats that were there, until later on. And after that, even then, we would get different types of goats, which is pretty cool. Like on our goat side, I kind of dig that side because we had a Saanen, and my mom leased our buck to a neighbor down the road who was, not this road, but to a different community, who was a relative. So in return, he brought the buck back along with a yearling, it was a yearling or a 2-year-old Saanen doe. So that's where we started getting the Saanen Angora crosses, which I see it as like a big improvement because they have amazing udders, and these crosses that we have now, their udders are amazing, and their maternal instincts are incredible. So that's like a great improvement. So on that side, it's just always been like that. But also, I think somewhere along the way, my mom stopped bringing in outside bucks. So a lot of them were just line bred. Is that what you call it? Line breeding? Interbreeding? And our goats started to get a little bit smaller in size and all that. So I noticed that. So it's just crazy, how all this stuff worked with our family. But now, this year, it's like the past few years, we've had I brought in some outside bucks, outside rams, and everything is a little bit better. But I was just thinking about that, and all this made more sense in my head. I keep saying that. But yeah, so like with the DBLA, I was just thinking about that and how it's a specific breed and how I want to move away from the older ewes that we have. Probably just sell them or process them to sear sometime. They're really nice ewes. But what I remember our herd when I was a younger kid, a little bit older as well, we had like these distinctive colored sheep markings, and I just went researching on the internet for different types of breeds, and I came upon a certain breed that reminded me of the sheep that we had when I was younger. So with that being said, I'm like, that's the sheep we had. Maybe that was like the breed that we had. And then it would have been so cool if we would have had kept that breed going, like as pure as possible. And it would have been very, very amazing to have done that, if parents, grandparents were like, how do you say it? Maybe like they were understanding of that, or I don't know what happened. I'm sure there's reasons why all this happened with them, but anyway. But that's a particular breed that I want to go back to, and yeah, so this coming year, probably late summer, before breeding season starts, we'll have to, hard choice, but have to do it to bring in the specific breed that I want, along with the DBLAs. So we'll have two breeds, distinct breeds here, along with the Angoras. And now our Navajo Angora group is getting smaller, but we used the American Angora this past year. But funny thing, I brought that boar buck. He kept breaking out and ended up just, I don't know how many he bred with, so it's going to be hard to tell. I'm just hoping that we have at least a couple, at least 3, 4, like that the American Angora buck, bred with. Because I know a majority of them are going to be boar crosses with Angoras, so yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see. The Sonnet Angora crosses, that's the one I actually wanted to breed the boar buck to. So there was 4 of them, and I know he bred them. They should be the first ones to be having babies here this month. With all the Angoras, it'll just be a surprise. We'll see. He'll be like, oh, that's a baby KB. That's his name. That's what I had named him, was KB, the boar buck that we had. Or he'll be like, oh, that's a heavy D baby. The American Angora we used was heavy D. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So he just kept breaking out. So, but anyway, I kind of had the idea to where I wanted to build, just to see how it turns out, like 3 generations from now, 4 generations, to where, this spring we get a Angora, a boar cross, and next year that yearling will be bred to an Angora. Their baby will be a quarter boar, and that quarter boar goat will end up being an eighth, whose baby will end up being an eighth, so on and so on, just to kind of, because I wanted to see if the boar buck or the boar breed, their meteor, add some meat onto the Angora breed, the Navajo Angoras. So that was just kind of my thinking. So I'm not disappointed or whatnot. It's just like, okay, well, that's kind of like what I intentionally had in mind in the beginning. So it'll be fun to see what happens this year. The kids that are crossed with boars. I was going to call them Angoras. Like the sun in Angoras, I call them Sangoras. So the Angora boar bucks will be, or kids will be, Angoras. Yeah, so that's just what I was thinking in my head. And then I just kind of, like how I was saying, I visualized myself sitting across from that person who's hosting the podcast. I'm like explaining to them all of this, and it got to a point to where I was like, like Navajos, like we're like a registered stock because we have clans. So it's funny because like Navajos, we have clans, like 4 clans that make you distinctive, and your first 2 clans, it's your mom and your dad's first clans, and your second 2 is your mom and your dad's second clan. So it's like you can't, traditionally you can't, the first 2 clans, you can't be with someone that has the same 2 first clans, so on and so on. So very technical, but I was just thinking about that. I was like, hey, we're a registered stock, and I was just like thinking of like the registered animals, like how you have their pedigree, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great, and like however many generations back it usually goes, like with horses, cattle, and now sheep and goats also do the same thing. So I was thinking that, and I'm like, well, I don't know about other native tribes, how far they go. Maybe they got 2 clans, or are we the only ones that have 4 clans? So just thinking in my head, and I was like, but I don't know, we're like registered stock, so yeah, we're pretty cool. We have our own clan that, our clan system makes us like that, so to prevent line breeding or interbreeding or whatever, so it was pretty funny in my head. I thought it was humorous. So, yeah, anyway, I was just thinking like this would have been fun to record the whole thing if I could just record my thoughts, because when I'm thinking it makes more sense, or maybe it just makes more sense to me. I don't know. And then when I start talking about it, I just kind of lose track of what I'm saying, because I think I'm thinking and talking, and like I can't keep up with my thoughts or something. But anyway, that's what was going through my head, and figured I just, record it while I'm following the dudes back. Yeah, see, the goats are inside. They're the first ones to kid, so they're in the old hay barn, the old horse shade. That used to be a horse shade area. If you followed me like 4 years ago, you remember me building this thing, like putting up the walls on that side and this side. Yeah. And they've been in here a couple of winters. Last winter, the sheep actually lambed first because we had Nuevo. Where's Nuevo? She's still here. There she is. Pure white one. January 1st, baby. So happy birthday, Nuevo. Nueva. That makes more sense, right? Nueva. But yeah. Yeah, so she was born on January 1st, and then 2 days later there was another one. So yeah, and we just put them in here, fed them until the lambs got about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then we separated them, and the moms went back on pasture. So it was pretty interesting. Might do the same thing this year. Yeah, so we're gonna, I guess, feed the dudes, the goats. I'm waiting on, since we're here, right? Here's the, I thought these guys would have already had kids. So I'm not sure if that little boar buck actually bred them or not. These two are the Songoras. It's two. Their sister, same mom, but they're a year apart. This one actually has a twin sister. Where's she at? So, but yeah, the only thing with this is it's kind of a low area, so, but they stay in there majority of the time. I used to put it on that side, but it just got pretty bad too. Hoping to get that done. It's just muddy over there too. Just crazy. Hey, she's an Angora. Right, number 31. Then we got our colored ones. So the Sangora, as you can tell, they're a little bit more curlier. The ringlets are a little curlier. Torvies over there. So these dudes, we're gonna have to have a hard choice too. Who goes, who stays. I like the yearlings though. The yearlings are nice. A lot of the new kids are nice. What's up, dude? Yeah, no kid. I thought she would have a kid by now. The one right there with the head kind of sideways. But no, not yet. Alright, y'all. These dudes over here, while they're distracted by the grass over here, I'm gonna feed these dudes, take them in, feed the kids. I'll show you the kids tomorrow or later. I'll put it on a separate video. But yeah, so alright, y'all. This was pretty fun. Just trying to recap my thoughts. Hopefully, it all made sense. Alright, y'all. Peace out. Have a great evening. See y'all later. Peace.